Hello, my name is Candice, and our good presentation is talking about gender difference in moral judgment. Chinese views about the Tax Habit Act, and we will be divided into 5 sections, which are introduction, methodology, result analysis, discussion, and the limitation. And firstly, introduction. What are moral judgment and gender difference? Moral judgment is an individual's evolution and judgment of goodness or badness and right or wrongness of a certain type of behavior, according to Ye Hongyan and Zhang Fenghua in 2015. And gender difference, on the other hand, is the difference between males and females. In fact, gender difference in moral judgments have been the focus of the moral of psychology research for a long time, according to Formigati, etc. in 2010. And secondly, what is the relationship between moral judgment and gender difference? With Gilligan's view being the most influential, she argues that there are two different moral orientations in moral judgment, the just orientation and the caring orientation. And the boys hold more of a just orientation, and the girls hold more of a caring orientation. And according to Gilligan in 1982, and this means that boys and girls have significantly different principles of moral judgment. And this difference may lead to significant gender difference in moral judgment. And let me introduce the Tax Habit Act. And this is a bill passed by the Texas legislature in the United States, and it was introduced on March 11th, 2021, and signed into law on May 19, 2021, and became effective on September 3rd, 2021. And the bill does not mandate a ban on abortion for women, but all abortions are prohibited after a woman is more than 6 months pregnant and the fetus has a heartbeat. And provides that the public can sue a person, organization, or agency that unlawfully helps a woman who is more than 6 weeks pregnant to have an abortion and can seek at least $10,000 in demands from the defendant. And it was such a bandit for some time after September 1st because of the lawsuit, but was reinstated on October 8th. It's worth noting that men and women in the United States have very different views on this bill. And let me talk about the current state of abortion in China presently. And China's National Family Planning Law states that the state supports long-term effective contraception, strictly prohibits the use of medical methods to identify the sex of the fetus, and prohibits medical termination of pregnancy that is not medically necessary for artificial identification. And this is a sentence of which from Article 51 of the Law of the People's Republic of China on the protection of women's rights and interests also stipulates that women have the right and freedom to choose to have children or not. And this is according to Zhou Yuanzhong and Zhang Xiaoling, both mentioned that in their articles that since the 1990s, with the introduction of painless abortion and various abortion drugs appears. the number of abortions among unmarried women in China has increased and is developing at a younger age. And according to the relevant studies, China has the highest numbers of abortions in the world, and most of the abortions are performed in the age group of 20 to 29 years old, and nearly half of the women who do abortions are unmarried girls. In recent years, reports of unaware pregnancies have also been mainstream news. And this is the end of my presentation. And next is my good member, Kiana, who will introduce a methodology.
Okay, thank you, Candice. And next, I will talk about methodology in 3 aspects. Before that, let's watch a video about the abortion law.
The US Supreme Court has voted not to block a law banning most abortions in Texas. The law makes it illegal to terminate pregnancies after 6 weeks, even in cases of rape or incest. It's the most dramatic restriction so far since the Roe v. Wade judgment of 1973, which legalized abortion across the United States. Dozens of women gathered outside the Texas State House in Austin to protest the law.
I'm here to really just get with my community of women and try to make a change and show the government that this isn't okay for us, that we are really enraged about this and we don't want this to happen.
Speaking to the BBC, the man who authored the law defended the decision to ban abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy, even in cases of rape.
We've talked to women in those situations. We wouldn't punish the unborn child because of the horrible act done to the mother. That unborn child is a separate human being. That unborn child in her mother's womb is the most innocent, the most helpless a human can ever be, and she deserves our protection.
President Biden has responded by vowing to protect abortion rights. He said the law was extreme and blatantly violates the constitutional right established under Roe v. Wade and upheld as precedent for nearly half a century. And his administration is deeply committed to that right and will protect and defend it. Our correspondent Nomia Iqbal has more from Washington.
This Texas law basically allows any individual to sue those who help a woman get an abortion. Now, the Supreme Court was asked by pro-abortion rights groups and providers to block this law, but in a ruling that was dominated by a mainly conservative bench, they voted to keep it in place. Now, the bench didn't comment on the constitutionality of this law, which basically leaves it open for it to potentially be appealed, but experts are worried that other states could bring in similar laws which would eliminate the guarantee of Roe v. Wade, which is, of course, the landmark ruling that legalized abortion across America in 1973. It is a huge milestone for lots of pro-life groups that exist in this country that have tried to roll back access to the procedure for many, many years. And of course, a huge setback for women's rights groups who say, well, this is just going to push women into crossing state lines to get an abortion. It will affect those who are poor. It will affect minority women as well. In terms of the reaction of President Biden, well, before the Supreme Court ruled to keep this law in place, he had commented on his concern about it. Now, he is a religious man. He's a devout Catholic. And in the past, he has said that he believes that life begins at the point of conception. But he has also said he would not impose his view on anybody else. And he has said that this law is concerning and his administration will do whatever it takes to protect the rights of women.
Nomia Iqbal there.
A week and a half after Texas passes one of the strictest abortion bans in the country, demonstrators showed up at the state capitol to protest it. Hundreds rallied on the south steps of the Capitol before marching to the governor's mansion today. They protested the Texas Heartbeat Act, which bans abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected. That's typically at 6 weeks gestation and before most women know they are pregnant. The measure does not make an exception for survivors of rape or incest who become pregnant as a result of the crime against them. It only allows an exception for a medical emergency. The bill also allows anyone to sue a doctor or anyone else who helps the person get an abortion.
We need to understand that this is a decision that is meant to be up to the person making the decision and should not be intervened by state politicians who knew nothing about what we're going through and why we may need an abortion. But what we do need is for our state leaders to ensure that we can do so safely and on our timeline.
Protesters say state leaders should focus more on insurance and health benefits rather than banning abortions. Now, there was also a small group of demonstrators who support this new.
And the first one is what methodology we have chosen, and then why we have chosen it, and the last one is who we have studied. In order to study the different perceptions of abortion law between men and women, a mixed quantitative and qualitative study was chosen to conduct a questionnaire survey. Firstly, we have 9 questions for the qualitative study and 50 questions for the qualitative study. The specific question will be explained in detail by another member ever of our team later. Secondly, we choose the questionnaire because it has 4 advantages that fit our survey. They are higher efficiency, objectivity, extensiveness, and uniformity. The first reason is that it is more efficiency and objective compared to other methods. The anonymous front of the online questionnaire is not only easy and convenient to operate and applicable to both male and female of all age, but also allow respondents to express their true inner thoughts and situations without fear, which can increase the validity of the data. Furthermore, it is extensive and uniform. The questionnaire survey is not limited by number or scope, and the same questionnaire is used for all respondents. The same questionnaire. The results are easy to summarize and analyze. Our questionnaire consists of 29 questions, including 4 categories of basic information. They are age, gender, occupation, and social stage. And as I mentioned, we have 9 qualitative and 50 qualitative stations. The sample was bored, as we wanted to find out whether they are different in perception of the abortion law. So we sampled men and women of all ages and from all social backgrounds. Because we were studying Chinese perception of the abortion law, we chose to conduct a survey by posting link on WeChat, which is widely used in China. Okay, thanks Kiana for introduction to methodology. Next, Kiana and I will then collaborate to present with a specific context structure and analyze of the results of our group questionnaire. We received a total 284 responses to this questionnaire, including 201 women and 83 men, with a male to female ratio of approximately 3:7. We set up 5 age ranges and 4 educational attainment ranges, of which approximately
70% of the response were between the age of 19 and 40. Approximately 72% had a bachelor's degree and higher, and the percentage of the responders who were unemployed and retired was less than 10%. Regarding the structure of the questionnaire, a hierarchical partitioning was carried out. First, basic information about the respondents was collected in question 1 to question 4 for subsequent data screening. Since our group found that premarital sex is often associated with abortion, next, through question 5 to question 10, we wanted to find out about the respondents' attitudes regarding the premarital sex. The focus of the questionnaire was placed in question 11 to question 21. This section provides a detailed look at the respondents' attitudes toward abortion and the Texas Heartbeat Act. At the end of the questionnaire, in question 22 to question 28, we set up a moral dilemma scenarios, hoping that this question would give respondents a more realistic sense of many complex realities that can affect moral judgment in real life. Okay, next Kiana will present 3 selected data in detail.
Let's start by looking at the first chart. This is the result of screening question 30. Do you think the proportion you would like? The result is filtered through men and women separately, and we can see that it's the proportion of men and women who agree is close, with a slight difference in the proportion of people who disagree and don't know. Next, question 19 on whether or not we suppose that Texas Heartbeat Act. Comparing the score for each sub-question, we can see that there is not much difference between the score of men and women. Finally, we looked at question 22 to question 25, and we screened the score of male and females separately, and compared the score of each sub-questions, we found that there was not much difference between the score of male and females. So, for a specific discussion of the data, Tiffany will introduce next.
First of all, thank you, Kiana. And next, I will talk about the discussion of the research and analyze some data of the relevant question. Look at the picture first, and both of them were taken photo during the demonstration which against the Texas Heartbeat Act. Just from the picture, we can see that the number of women were much more larger than men. Besides, as we mentioned in the introduction, there are 2 main theories of gender difference were set up by the Western scholar. With the broadly report by the newspaper and the BBC News, it indicates that there is indeed have gender difference in moral judgment through the view of the Texas Heartbeat Act. But noting that, here, we are not mentioned which side they will stand for. And according to the phenomenon, that the gender difference in moral judgment through the view of Texas Heartbeat Acts, the purpose of our research is to investigate that whether there is also exists gender difference in moral judgment about abortion in China. The practical significance of studying gender difference help people to establish correct gender concepts, while eliminate the stereotype picture of male and female. Furthermore, we choose to analyze gender difference in the domain of moral judgment is because moral judgment is a complex situation. Some people will judge according to the resultant behavior, while others will judge by their own instinctive patterns. And when these complex environmental background factors are all together, it is more meaningful and significant for studying gender difference. There are total 28 questions raised in our questionnaire. We will discuss some relevant questions rather than analyze them all. Let's have a look at the 30 questions first. As Kiana mentioned before, the questions reflect the gender difference, and the agreement of both male and female are in slight difference. The disagreement and the don't know answer part are gradually increased, which almost reached to 10%. Then we come to the question 19. as the data shows. This time, no matter whether disagreement or the agreement, the percentage of the difference are very high. Compared with the question 30, the question 90's difference are high at around 50%. The gender difference in the both questions are quite fit as the theory that raised by the Gilligan that girls hold more of a caring orientation, and due to the traditional Chinese society, girls may have been raised to be more caring and to take care of others' emotions. The gender difference here also can be explained according to the evolutionary theory of psychology gender difference, which girls and boys have different behavior adaptation due to the social, environmental, and developmental level. As we see this huge distinct and the trend of the data, we hypothesize that maybe in the following question, the gender difference will become larger and larger. Comes to the important part, which we stimulate some questions like the moral dilemma that closely to the topic. To our surprise, we can see that in this moral judgment of the extinct dilemma, the gender difference is very small. All the difference in this part only reach to 1%. It is not only small, but also sometimes can be neglected. The moral judgment in the situation in abortion between men and women is very similar. What's more, it's also different from Colbert and Gilligan theory of gender difference. So, according to the research, we may raise our gap that whether other realistic factors like the connection skill of humans may moderate the gender difference. However, the difference with the result in the research may be due to the fact that the number of the genders in our sample size is not relative, as we can see that the participants in the study involved 284 people, and the percentage of women is reached to 70.77%, while male are 29.23%. This may be also because the previous literature did not take a wide range of subjects. Although our result cannot be said that statistically significant, but for the following studies, we should take more account the influence of social contexts and regions, because the nature of moral judgment is complex, and its results are influenced by social, emotional, thinking, behavior, and cognitive development levels of the subjects. In short, the gender difference plays a non-negligible role in moral judgment, and while considering gender difference, we should also include and focus on other social contextual factors so as to better analyze gender difference in moral judgment. That's all for my part, and next, we'll come to Eva.
Thanks, Tiffany, for introduction to discussion section, and I will then point out the limitation of our questionnaire. The first one is lack of flexibility. Many of questions and answers in the questionnaire are set in advance, so many respondents' answers will be somewhat limited. For example, some respondents gave feedback after completing the questionnaire that none of the options were the one I wanted to choose. Although we provided other options for some questions for respondents to fill in freely, some details may have been missed or the respondents' wishes may not have been truly expressed. Next one is the quality of the responses is not guaranteed. Although most of the respondents complete the questionnaire carefully and honestly because the questionnaire was freely filled in, a small number of respondents may give wrong or random answer, and it's difficult to screen out the questionnaire with such problem, which may affect our results. Finally, it's inevitable that in the process of designing the questionnaire, there may be some minor problem with the rationality and the logic of our setup due to the lack of experience, although we have tried to improve our questionnaire as much as possible. And that's all for our group presentation. Thanks for listening.